My fiancé said I was pathetic and broke, then married a rich lawyer. My AI company just ruined his entire industry. Here is the revised story with the necessary safety adjustments and polished flow. My ex-fiancé Brooke and I met in a ridiculous way. I was a 29-year-old guy, dead-eyed from coding for 12 hours straight in the library at 2 a.m. when Brooke, 26, with perfectly styled hair and a coffee cup, tripped and spilled her latte all over my laptop. Most people would have lost their cool, but I just looked at her and said, well, at least now my code has some flavor. She laughed instead of running away. We were together for 4 years and engaged for the last 8 months, genuinely believing we had something real. I had proposed with a ring I'd saved up for 6 months to buy, and she said yes, crying happy tears. We posted pictures on social media with captions about forever. She'd come over to my third-floor walk-up apartment, which was maybe 600 square feet. The building had character, which in real estate speak means everything's broken and the landlord doesn't care. But Brooke seemed to love it. We decorated with string lights from Target and posters I'd collected over the years. Then there was my rescued tabby cat, Python, who had an annoying habit of knocking everything off every surface. But every night, without fail, he'd curl up between us on the bed. Brooke always claimed she was more of a dog person, but I'd catch her having full conversations with Python when she thought I wasn't around. Brooke's family never explicitly said they hated me. Instead, I got the death by 1,000 paper cuts treatment. Her mother would always give me that dismissive look. Her father had this way of asking about my little computer project with the same tone you'd use to ask a kid about their imaginary friend. Real supportive energy there. Their family dinners were like performance art, where I was both the audience and the punchline. But here's the thing. Back then, Brooke seemed different. She'd roll her eyes at their country club drama and make jokes about how stuffy they were. We'd be eating Chinese takeout on my futon, watching movies on my laptop that took 5 minutes to buffer anything, and she'd tell me none of the money stuff mattered. Turns out, that was total nonsense. The first real crack in our relationship happened about 6 months before the end. Brooke's college roommate was getting married. I saved up for months to rent a decent tux and buy a wedding gift. Being engaged ourselves, I thought this would be fun, a preview of our own future wedding. When we got to the reception, it was like stepping into a different world. Ice sculptures, live orchestra, champagne that probably cost more per bottle than my monthly grocery budget. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine, and I felt like I'd wandered onto the wrong movie set. Brooke fit right in, of course. She was in her element, chatting with old classmates about their jobs at investment banks and consulting firms, their new apartments in trendy neighborhoods, and their expensive vacation plans. Meanwhile, I was standing there nursing a single drink, trying to make conversation with people who kept asking what I do, and then losing interest the moment I mentioned startups. Brooke had specifically requested not to sit with her college friends because they can be a bit much, but somehow we ended up at a table full of her parents' friends instead. Older couples with serious money who spent the entire dinner talking about their stock portfolios and real estate investments. When they asked about my work, I tried to explain my startup in terms they'd understand. Big mistake. One guy literally laughed and said, "Still playing with computers, huh? When are you going to get a real job? Especially now that you're getting married. Time to grow up." And here's the part that stung. Brooke didn't defend me. She just looked embarrassed and changed the subject to the bride's dress. Later, when I brought it up in the car, she said I was being too sensitive and that I should have just played along better. The second incident happened a few weeks later, when her mother invited me for coffee without Brooke, just the two of us. We met at this upscale cafe in her neighborhood, the kind of place where a basic latte costs $8 and everyone looks like they're conducting important business meetings. She showed up 15 minutes late wearing designer everything and didn't apologize, just launched straight into her agenda. "I've been thinking about your situation," she said, like my life was a problem she needed to solve. "And I have some connections who might be able to help you find something more stable." She pulled out a folder full of job listings she'd printed out. Entry-level positions at banks, insurance companies, corporate office jobs, the kind of soul-crushing 9-to-5 work that would have killed everything I was passionate about. "These are real careers," she explained, sliding the papers across the table, "with benefits, retirement plans, growth potential. You could start at the bottom and work your way up like Brody did." I stared at the papers, genuinely speechless. "You want me to give up my startup to become, what, a claims adjuster?" She looked at me like I was a child refusing to eat vegetables. "I want you to be realistic about your future, about Brooke's future. She deserves security, not fairy tales." The conversation went downhill from there. She kept using phrases like, "when you're ready to grow up," and "Brooke needs a provider, not a dreamer." She never raised her voice, never lost her composure, but every word was designed to make me feel small and inadequate. The worst part? When I told Brooke about it later, she didn't seem surprised or upset that her mother had ambushed me. She just said, "She means well. Maybe you should at least look at those jobs, just as a backup plan." That's when I knew the poison was already spreading. The beginning of the end started with what Brooke called just a casual family dinner. She asked me to wear a blazer. When I showed up to their estate, and yeah, it's big enough to call an estate, I realized this wasn't going to be the intimate family gathering Brooke had described. The driveway looked like a luxury car dealership. BMWs, Mercedes, a couple of Audis, my 2008 Honda Civic with the dent in the bumper and the check engine light that had been on since the previous administration looked like it had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. The real kicker? This wasn't just family. Brooke's dad had invited his business associates and their sons, guys who looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate success story. Ivy League educations, summer internships at major banks, fathers who play golf with senators. The conversation flowed like they were all reading from the same script. Investment strategies, European vacations, property portfolios. Meanwhile, I'm over here with my most exciting recent purchase being name brand cereal instead of the store brand. Real thrilling stuff. Then came the targeted questions, delivered with surgical precision. "So you're still working on that little tech project?" Brooke's father asked. "It's a startup," I corrected, trying not to sound defensive. "We're in early development, but we're making solid progress." I didn't mention that our last investor meeting had been a disaster, or that my co-founder Jake and I had been pulling 80-hour weeks trying to fix a bug in our prototype that was making it crash every time someone tried to upload a file larger than 50 megabytes. Technical difficulties aside, we were broke and running on fumes. One of his friends, this guy with perfect teeth and a February tan that screamed, "I winter in Florida," chuckled like I just told him the earth was flat. "Tech is so volatile these days. You sure it's a wise investment of time? Maybe a backup plan wouldn't hurt." The condescension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And here's the part that really stung. Brooke didn't say a word in my defense. Usually she'd jump in with something about how passionate I was or how she believed in what we were building. This time, nothing. Then they brought out Brody. Brooke's mother introduced him like he was a celebrity. Brody just made junior partner at a top corporate law firm. Princeton undergraduate, Yale Law. Such a brilliant mind. Brody was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, the kind of guy who probably had his suits tailored and never had to check his bank balance before buying coffee. He talked about his recent bonus like it was casual conversation. The condo he just bought in the right part of town. His 5-year plan to make full partner. And Brooke? She was eating it up, asking questions about his work, laughing at his mediocre jokes, showing more interest in his career than she'd ever shown in mine. Every question she asked him felt like a small betrayal. I barely said 10 words the entire night. Every time I tried to contribute to the conversation, someone would politely listen for about 5 seconds before steering things back to Brody's accomplishments or someone else's success story. I was watching Brooke transform into someone I didn't recognize. The girl who used to make fun of pretentious people was suddenly one of them. When we got back to my apartment that night, something had shifted. She complained about the broken elevator that had been out of order for months. She wrinkled her nose when Python jumped on the bed, something that had never bothered her before. She mentioned how small the bathroom was, like she was seeing the place for the first time. That's when I knew it was over. I just didn't know she was going to make it official so soon. A week later, Brooke showed up at my place after work, still wearing her business casual outfit. She sat across from me at my tiny IKEA dining table, the same table where we'd had countless takeout dinners, game nights with friends, and late-night conversations about our future together. But this wasn't going to be one of those conversations. We need to talk, she said, and I could tell she'd been rehearsing this. I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about my future, about what I need. I knew where this was heading, but I let her talk. I love you, but I need stability. I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out. My family made me realize I need someone who's already there, someone who can provide the life I deserve. Someone like Brody, I said flatly. She didn't even have the decency to look surprised that I'd connected the dots. Yes, someone like Brody. And then her mask slipped. Look, I tried to make this work, she said, gesturing around my cramped apartment like it was evidence of some moral failing. I really did, but I can't pretend anymore that this is the life I want. Living in some rundown building, worrying about money, dating someone who can't even afford to take me somewhere nice. This was the same person who used to say she loved our cozy nights in, who claimed she didn't care about fancy restaurants or expensive things. You're 29 years old and you're still playing with computers in your bedroom like you're 19, she continued, her voice getting sharper. Brody owns a condo downtown. He takes me to restaurants where people recognize him. He doesn't have to save up for months just to buy a decent ring. That last part hit like a physical blow. I'd worked double shifts for 6 months to afford her engagement ring. It wasn't huge, but it was real, and I'd been proud of it. Wow, I said. I didn't know that's what you thought about it for years. 4 years and you're telling me this now, Brooke? Why waste all that time? I gave you 4 years to get your act together to become someone worth staying with, she retorted. But you're still the same broke dreamer I met in college, except now you're older, and it's just pathetic. After some back and forth, the argument escalated, and she did something I'll never forget. She yanked the engagement ring off her finger and threw it at me. It bounced off my chest and clattered onto the floor. Here, take your cheap ring back, she said with disgust. Brody's already talking about getting me a real one, from Tiffany's, not some discount jewelry store. I stared at the ring on the floor, the ring I'd saved up for, the ring she'd cried happy tears over just months ago, the ring that represented everything I'd hoped we'd build together. You know what's pathetic? I said, standing up. Pretending to love someone for 4 years while secretly keeping score, pretending to be someone you're not because you're too much of a coward to own your shallowness from the start. Her face flushed red. At least I'm not wasting my life chasing some impossible dream. That's never going to happen. You're right, I said, picking up the ring from the floor. You're not wasting your life. You're just wasting mine. She grabbed her purse, suddenly eager to leave now that she'd said her piece. Brody is picking me up at 8. The final twist of the knife. She wanted me to know she was going straight from ending our engagement to a date with her upgrade. Good for you, I said, opening the door for her. I hope you're very happy together. 2 days later, she was Instagram official with Brody. Not even a week after ending our engagement, there they were in matching outfits at some luxury resort in the Hamptons. His arm around her waist, her smile wide and carefree. Caption, found my forever. Meanwhile, I was still sleeping on the side of the bed we used to share, still finding her hair ties in random places, still had half her stuff in my apartment because she hadn't found time to pick it up yet. The engagement ring sat on my dresser, a daily reminder of how foolish I'd been to believe in forever. I wish I could say I channeled my heartbreak into immediate success, that I became some tech mogul overnight through sheer force of will, but that's movie nonsense. Real life is messier. I spiraled hard. My startup crashed exactly 1 month after our breakup. Our investors pulled out after our prototype failed spectacularly during what was supposed to be our big demo. The app crashed 3 times in the first 5 minutes, and when it finally worked, it ran so slowly that everyone in the room started checking their phones. Jake, my co-founder, took a job at Microsoft 2 weeks later. Can't blame him. He had student loans and a girlfriend who actually supported his career. I was suddenly alone with a failed company, a lease I couldn't afford, and savings that were disappearing faster than free food at a college event. I had to give up the apartment, but my friend Kai saved my skin. This guy I'd known since freshman year, who never quite understood what I saw in Brooke but supported me anyway. His place was even smaller than mine, a 1-bedroom where the living room doubled as his office. But he cleared out half his closet without me even asking, and let me and Python crash in his spare room. Kai's reaction when I showed up at his door with my life in garbage bags? Dude, I always knew she was high maintenance, but wow, she really said your ring was cheap? Then, after a pause, that thing cost more than my car. Well, my car's a piece of junk, but still, I joked weakly. That's a real friend right there. Meanwhile, Brooke's perfect new life was playing out like a highlight reel on social media. Vacations to places I'd only seen in movies, dinners at restaurants where the menu doesn't have prices. Every post felt personal, like she was saying, see, this is what I deserve. This is what you never could have given me. The absolute lowest point came when I ran into Brooke and Brody at a cafe downtown. I was there picking up a delivery order because that's what my life had become. My car's AC had been broken for 3 months. I couldn't afford to fix it. So I was driving around in 90-degree heat with the windows down, sweating through whatever clean shirt I had left. My phone was at 15% battery after a 10-hour shift, and I still had 4 more deliveries to make if I wanted wanted to hit my daily goal. There they were, sitting outside like they'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. For a split second, I thought I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe. But then she smiled, actually smiled. The condescension was suffocating. I grabbed the bag and walked away without another word. But I heard Brody say, just loud enough for me to catch, "Dodged a bullet there, didn't we?" And Brooks laugh in response. That moment broke something in me. Standing there in the summer heat, sweating through my uniform, listening to my ex-fiancée and her new boyfriend mock my failures, that was the last day I allowed myself to be a joke. I went home to Kai's apartment that night, deleted every social media app from my phone, and told him what happened. His response? "Man, that guy sounds like the kind of person who thinks mayo is spicy." And she laughed. Nah, man. Time to show these trust fund babies how the real world works. I cut everything out. Social media distractions, self-pity, negative people. I went into full rebuild mode like my life depended on it. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. 4 hours a night if I was lucky. Days were for deliveries. Evenings were for my night shift stocking shelves at the grocery store. And any spare moment was spent rebuilding my startup from scratch. But this time was different. I got smart about it. No more chasing investors with half-baked ideas and flashy presentations. I learned to bootstrap, to build something real before asking for anyone's money. No more trusting people easily. I kept my circle small, just Kai and a couple of other ride-or-die friends who'd proven themselves when things got ugly. Kai was incredible through all of this. He'd bring me coffee during my late-night coding sessions, make sure I ate something besides protein bars, and never once complained about me turning his living room into a disaster zone. He even helped me land my first few enterprise clients through connections at his job. Didn't ask for anything in return, just wanted to see me succeed. For 2 years, I completely disappeared from Brooke's world. Had no idea what she was doing, who she was with, whether she was happy, and honestly, I stopped caring. While she was playing house with Brody, I was grinding harder than I'd ever worked in my life. My new startup idea came from my previous failure. Instead of trying to create some revolutionary consumer app that would change the world, I pivoted to B2B software, specifically AI-powered contract analysis for law firms. Kai's take on this pivot: "So you're basically building software to replace lawyers. Dude, you're going to save the world and get revenge at the same time. That's some next-level supervillain stuff right there." It was boring, unglamorous work that nobody posts about on social media, but it solved a real problem I'd experienced firsthand when trying to navigate legal documents during my first startup. Small law firms were drowning in paperwork, spending hours on tasks that could be automated. Our software could analyze contracts, spot potential issues, and flag important clauses in seconds instead of hours. And more importantly, people were willing to pay for it. Then everything changed. It started small. A mention in an industry publication, a testimonial from a satisfied client that opened doors. Word spread in legal circles that there was this new tool that could do the work of junior associates at a fraction of the cost. Suddenly, I wasn't chasing clients anymore. They were calling me. My team was incredible. People who believed in the vision, who worked just as hard as I did, who became like family. Jake actually reached out during this phase, wanting to come back, said Microsoft was fine, but he missed the startup energy. I told him we were good, not out of spite, but because the team I had now was solid. Within months, we were scaling fast, really fast. We landed a contract with one of the top 5 law firms in the country, which led to more contracts, more recognition, more investors wanting in. The company that had started in Kai's living room was suddenly opening offices in London and Singapore. We were expanding globally, disrupting an industry that had operated the same way for decades. But here's the beautiful irony. Our biggest market disruption was in corporate law, specifically financial services law, the exact area where Brody worked. Our AI tools were making junior associates obsolete, automating the grunt work that guys like Brody had built their early careers on. When I realized this connection, Kai nearly choked on his coffee, laughing. Wait. You're telling me that your company is literally putting trust fund lawyers out of business, and Captain America wannabe has no idea? The first time I saw Brooke again was at an industry conference, not as a guest this time, but as a featured speaker. A year earlier, I couldn't have afforded the entry ticket. Now, I was on the main stage talking about how AI was reshaping legal services to an audience of executives and investors. After my talk, shaking hands with people who wanted to do business, I spotted Brooke's parents across the room. The change in their demeanor was immediate and obvious. Her mother's glass froze halfway to her lips. Her father, who had once mocked my little computer project at his dinner table, gave me a slow, respectful nod. Then I saw Brooke. She was standing off to the side, frozen, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. She looked good, but different. The carefree confidence from her Instagram posts was nowhere to be seen. She looked smaller somehow. We didn't approach each other. We didn't speak, but I saw the exact moment the realization hit her. The moment she understood that the pathetic guy she'd left behind was now more successful than anyone in her family's social circle. Kai's text when I told him about seeing her. Did she look like she just realized she made a huge mistake? Please tell me she looked like she realized she made a huge mistake. From that night on, everything accelerated. Word travels fast in certain circles, especially when someone goes from zero to hero in a couple of years. Within weeks of that conference, I started getting invitations to events I'd never heard of. Brooke's father personally reached out to invite me to one of these events. I accepted, not because I wanted their approval, but because I knew exactly what this was about. They wanted to be associated with my success. When I arrived at the event, fashionably late because why not, I immediately spotted Brooke and Brody. Brody looked different, stressed. His shoulders were tense. He kept checking his phone, and he had this haunted look that comes from knowing your world is falling apart but not being able to stop it. His firm had been hemorrhaging clients to companies like mine. Traditional law firms were struggling to compete with AI-powered efficiency, and the old guard was panicking. They were trying to adapt, but failing, losing business to younger, more innovative companies that could deliver better results, faster, and cheaper. Brody probably still didn't know I was behind his problems, but he was definitely feeling the pressure. Meanwhile, Brooke knew exactly who I was. When our eyes met across the room, I saw the same expression from the conference, but worse. Pure, undeniable regret. A week after the event, she reached out. I had deleted her number years ago, but her message still came through. "Hey, it's been a while. I was wondering if we could catch up sometime. Just talk." I ignored it. Then she made a desperate move. She showed up at my office. My team had left for the day, and I was finishing up some emails when the security guard called up. "Sir, there's a woman here. She's pretty pretty upset. Says she needs to see you urgently. Let her up, I said. I had a feeling I knew who it was. When the elevator doors opened, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished, put-together woman I'd known. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smudged like she'd been crying. She was wearing jeans and a wrinkled sweater. I'd never seen her in anything that casual, even back when we were together. Thank God you're here, she said, rushing into my office without being invited. I've been calling, texting. Why won't you answer me? I stayed seated behind my desk. Because we have nothing to talk about, Brooke. Yes, we do, she practically shouted. I left him. I left Brody. It's over. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She started pacing frantically. So I'm done. I'm done with all of it. Good for you, I said flatly. She stopped pacing and stared at me. Don't you get it? I'm free now. We can be together again. We can start over. I almost laughed. Start over? I made a mistake, she said, her voice getting higher and more desperate. The biggest mistake of my life. I should never have left you. You were right about everything. My family, Brody, all of it. But I'm here now, and I'm choosing you. She moved closer to my desk, her eyes wild with desperation. I know you still love me. What we had was real. Real love doesn't just disappear. You're right, I said, standing up. Real love doesn't disappear. But what we had wasn't real love. Her face crumpled. That's not true. You left me the moment something better came along. That's not love. That's convenience. I was confused. My family pressured me. I was young and stupid. You were 26, Brooke. You weren't a child. She started crying then, ugly, sobbing. Please, Tony, I'm begging you. I have nothing left. My parents won't even take my calls anymore. You're all I have. I'm not your anything, I said coldly. I'm also with someone else. You need to move on. She grabbed my arm, her grip desperate. I was wrong about the ring. It was beautiful. I was just scared. I pulled my arm away. Don't. But she couldn't stop. I'll do anything. I'll work. I'll change everything about myself. Just please take me back. I love you. I've always loved you. No, Brooke, you need to leave. No, she screamed. You don't understand. I made one mistake. One. You can't punish me forever. Then I called security. What are you doing? She screamed. Calling security. She lunged for the phone, trying to stop me. Don't you dare! You can't just throw me out! I easily moved the phone out of her reach and dialed security. I need someone to escort a visitor out of my office. You monster! She screamed. I loved you. I gave you the best years of my life, Tony. The security guard arrived. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me. No, you don't understand! She shouted at him, then spun back to me. I'm offering you everything. My whole life. How can you just throw that away? I looked at her and said nothing. Then the guard guided her toward the elevator while she was still yelling and crying. That woman is with you only for money. When you're old and alone and she takes everything from you, you'll remember that I was the one who really loved you. The elevator doors closed, and she was gone. I stood there for a moment in the silence of my office, then texted Kai. Just had Brooke escorted out by security. She completely lost it in the end. Kai knew exactly how to put things in perspective. In the end, I didn't need to destroy Brooke's life. She did that herself by trading real love for status symbols. When that status disappeared, she was left with nothing, not even her dignity. His reply was immediate. Man, please tell me someone got video. That sounds like prime content right there.